So let's talk about OCD and the findings of David Schwartz. It really helps us to get a picture of the brain. So I'm going to start there and show you the difference of what it looks like between a normal brain and a brain that is locked in OCD. So let's start there. All right. You'll see all my open tabs for a second. Okay, so this is a brain on OCD. You can see that everything is fired up and locked, and so thoughts just get stuck. It gets sticky in your brain where things get into a loop and it's really hard to get out of it. And that's where the obsessiveness and the compulsions come, because you're just locked in to these different thought processes. Whereas in a healthy brain, you are focused on something and it activates that part of the brain instead of all things firing and locked in together. So I'm just going to show you the different parts of the brain, and I'll stop sharing and I'll take you through what those different parts do and what that loop is like. All right, so let's share this. So we're going to be looking at here the optical frontal cortex, which is just behind the eyes. So the bit of the brain behind the eyes. We're also going to be looking at the cingulate gyrus, which is this section over here. We're going to be talking about the amygdala, that is the little almond-shaped thing. It's on both sides at the back of the brain. That's the storehouse for emotions and trauma. And then we're also going to be looking at that. Here they're showing a different shape of the amygdala, but that's what it is. And it's connected, to the tail of the caudate nucleus, which surrounds all of this over here. So those are the 4 parts of the brain that are activated in OCD. So let me go through those parts of the brain and describe them for you so you can understand what's happening in your brain. So instead of thinking you're wrong, you can understand that your brain is just hooked and stuck in a position that is struggling to unlock. So it's your brain that's kind of feels a bit faulty because it's stuck in transmission and just blocked and constantly looping between those different parts. And the actions that you take reinforce those that make you feel worse about yourself. And as you feel worse about yourself, it rehooks and continues that pattern. So let's have a look at what is involved in that obsessive thinking and compulsive behaviors. First, we looked at the orbital frontal cortex that is just behind your eyes. That is all about sensory detection and then interpreting and detecting things, mistakes and signals, that obsessiveness. So this is more activated in OC brain. It's the part of the brain that's involved in reward and punishment. So it detects things and might go, oh, you've done something wrong here. And then it decides and lets parts of the brain know, oh, this should be rewarded or it should be punished. So that then communicates with the cingulate gyrus, and that links the reward and punishment information, and it elicits an emotional response that links to behavior and then to actions. But in the OCD brain lock, it receives that signal and that triggers anxiety, and then it activates or transmits signals to the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, that results in the physical sensations like your gut and heart just feel filled with dread, like you've done something utterly horrendous. And then it makes you feel more paranoid. It makes you criticize yourself. And then it makes you do actions that perpetuate that anxiety that you just can't get away from. This is linked to the amygdala. And the amygdala is the storehouse of emotion and trauma. So often, as you're doing that, you can have memories or images of old trauma that have come up that you might feel bad about, or you might feel that you did something wrong. And so therefore, you're going to get punished for it. It feeds into those worries and fears and floods your system. Then the fourth part is the caudate nucleus. I can feel the anxiety of, as I'm thinking about folk with OCD, I can feel like this, the loop that happens that is so scary for you. The caudate nucleus is that tail that's connected to the trauma. And this doesn't shift smoothly and gets stuck. So normally it would help you to shift, but it gets stuck, and then it continues to flood you. That's signals of the orbital frontal cortex. So you get stuck in that whole process, and your brain is just locked into that obsessional compulsive thinking. So it is simply OCD. I say simply, but it feels horrendous. It is simply a faulty wiring that's in the brain. It is not because you're bad. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's not because you deserve punishment. It's not because something is going to go wrong. It is simply wiring of your brain that is altering your perception, that's making you more paranoid and critical of yourself. It's just like if you have in a house, for instance, and somehow the electrics have gone wrong and it keeps short-circuiting and turning the lights out. And then the electrician has to come around and recircuit things so that things flow and it doesn't flood the system. That's what's happening here. And so what you need is to be able to alter the system so you get out of that loop. So it's really helpful if you can distinguish between the OCD, which are these worrisome thoughts that intrude your consciousness, and then the content of the obsession. So, for example, it might be that there's a germ, or you might have done something, you might have not locked something, or you might have done something dangerous, or you might have hurt somebody. So whatever those contents are, sometimes those contents relate to some sort of trauma in childhood, and those can be dealt with in therapy of seeing, why is this part of the amygdala, this old trauma, being triggered that enhances that loop. And other times, then you can deal with that in therapy and just process that trauma, weaving love, care, protection, safety, unshaming that part of you, while also acknowledging that the OCD keeps you trapped, looping in this trauma, so that you can separate and step out of that trauma. But the more that you focus just on that, you begin to get obsessional about what you can do to make that better. And the more you focus on that content, the worse your condition becomes, because you think, I have to wash my hands, or I have to lock this, or I have to check that I haven't hurt anybody. And the more that you check or contact somebody, did I say something? Or are there germs? I need to wash everything out. Or did I lock everything? Because there was a level of safety that was unmet in childhood. It becomes that obsession. And the more you do that, it more wires your brain to think in that locked thinking. So this delinking is really, really crucial, because when you carry on acting on that compulsion or the obsession, while it makes you feel less anxious for a tiny moment of, oh, okay, I didn't, the oven is off, the door is locked. For a second, it makes you feel less anxious, but it strengthens that circuit of the compulsive obsessive thought system, and so it gets worse. So we need to unlink that to be able to calm your whole nervous system. If we remember that neurons that fire together wire together, so if you're repeating the actions like checking the oven, washing your hands, locking, making sure you didn't do something wrong, then you are wiring your brain more and more for the obsessional compulsive behaviors to happen. So what we want to do to shift that is, one, rewire ourselves with love and care and goodness. So we're treating ourselves with empathy, care, and compassion, rather than following that obsessive thing of I'm bad, I'm useless, I'm wrong, I'm not good enough. That propels that. So that's one part of it that we want to focus on in therapy. The other part of it is doing things in your life that create pleasure, so that we can replace the pleasure with something, replace the obsessional thought with some level of pleasure that makes you feel better about yourself. And doing those two things, deep empathy, compassion, validation, and safety, while doing pleasure or things that make you feel great about yourself, eventually you create a new circuit that is gradually reinforced rather than that obsession. So you want to speak to yourself with kindness, care, love, and you want to transition into going, what would make me feel excited, happy, joyful, loved, and step into that so that you are allowing yourself to unlink those old obsessive compulsive stronghold in your brain and rewire yourself for goodness, for care, for love that you so deserve. And how brain spotting can help with this is that, one, it can help you to understand that OCD is just something that's happening, that's making your brain locked, and it can help process that trauma that in the amygdala that's getting re-triggered, so that you can rewire those parts with, I'm saying rewire, but the brain doesn't rewire, it just, the circuits shift and the memories get stored in a healthy way in that trauma, so it isn't flooding the brain with obsessive compulsive thoughts or thoughts of panic about what happened, and then you feel bad about yourself and it carries on that loop. So it can help you to process that trauma that's there, help to show you that the brain is linking wrongly, or linking in a way that is perpetuating these thoughts. And then it can also resource you so you feel safer and less anxious in those moments of OCD, as well as helping you to focus on the beautiful, good, loving parts of your life, so that when OCD thoughts happen outside of the therapy room, you can make yourself safe. You can remind yourself that this is just a brain lock of the OCD, and then it can help you to shift more easily into more pleasurable activities where you feel loved, cared for, and really valued in your life. So as you practice these in the brain spotting session, you can then more easily do it at home or when you're alone. You can also share this with your friends and family so they can understand you. So when you are in a moment of OCD where your brain is locked, they can make you safe by empathizing, by letting you know that this is OCD happening, and they understand that it's making you tense and upset and worried, and then support you into offering things that you might love to do that you feel great, where you feel great about yourself. So it might be activities that bring you joy and pleasure. And when you begin to go into those anxious moments, they can co-regulate you. To do that, you can do things like breathing with them, smiling into them, speaking to them with a really soothing, loving tone, looking at them with sparkly eyes with kindness, letting them know how much you care and love them, instead of making them wrong for what they're feeling or saying, oh, it's just in your brain. You can empathize and say, it makes sense. This is scary. Your brain is making you believe that you're bad. This is what OCD does in your brain. It's not you. It's going to be okay. Let's go and do something together that's beautiful and cherishing and loving. I hope this helps. And for all of you who are experiencing OCD, I am sending you so much love and care and goodness. Know this, it is your brain. You are somebody who is beautiful, worthy, and deserving of being loved and cherished. You are not bad because your brain is looping like this. It happens in moments of stress or trauma or a moment happening. It can be something small that connects to a trauma in the past. It can be something as simple as a car driving past because that reminded you of some trauma in childhood. And in that moment, a car went past. So that can trigger the randomness of this due to the parts of the brain that connect to that whole OCD brain lock. Know that things can get better. It takes unhooking. It takes getting safe, regulating yourself, weaving love into the trauma, knowing it's a brain lock, and stepping into creating a life that you love. Sending you love, care, and goodness. And reach out if you'd like support. Sending you love. Bye.